Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Selena and I am your holistic guide. I like to talk about all things GAPS related, nutrition, emotions, and everything that really has to do with creating a healthy home and body inside and out. Today I'm going to be talking with you about a topic that for me has been a gradual learning process, and that is going out to eat, eating out at restaurants, eating out on the go, how to do that, if you can do it, especially when you are on a diet or especially when you're on GAPS. For me personally, I have been on several different trips for work and other different travel related, house related, moving excursions that has made me have to kind of learn how to think on my feet, especially when it comes to eating out at restaurants here and there. I have been on full GAPS for about a year and a half now, and for me, eating out at restaurants has been a very challenging thing, but over time I have learned a few different things to make it possible every once in a while, or when I'm in a pinch, or for really kind of special, unique circumstances that have made it possible for me to not get sick at restaurants, made it possible to kind of survive vacations and different things like that, staying healthy, sticking to the diet, and all of that. This video is not just though for people who are on GAPS, even though I do think this is going to be really helpful for those of you who are on such a long-term kind of restrictive diet like GAPS is, but it's also for people who have allergies or have food intolerances or have kind of pickier diets or on any kind of number of diets that there are out there right now. When you're really trying to be picky about the ingredients that are in your food, this video is going to help you, walk you through the process as to how to eat out, not get sick, not break your diet, and have overall positive experience. I will start by saying that when you go out to restaurants, you cannot control everything, and that's the challenging part here, is that I can't guarantee that all of these things are going to work for every single body, every single circumstance, because you can't control everything and you don't know what's behind the curtain. You don't know what they're doing back there. And so if you are extremely sensitive, or if you have some kind of really extreme case, this may not work for you. If you are on the intro to GAPS diet, like I've talked about here on my channel, this may not be possible because intro to GAPS is so restrictive and it's very heavily focused on things you're taking in, making sure you're taking in these nutrient-dense foods. So this might not be your thing, but I'm here on full GAPS, and I'm here to say that I think it is possible every once in a while to be able to eat out at a restaurant if you can follow these 3 keys. Let's jump in. The first thing that I'm going to say is the most important thing is setting yourself up ahead of time with quality. So this has to do with the quality of the restaurant, but also the quality of the meals. So this honestly is not the moment for going and getting fast food at McDonald's. This is not when you're testing your limits at Chipotle. This is really if you're serious about whatever diet or protocol you're on, you're going to need to do some research ahead of time to set yourself up for success. So picking a quality restaurant is going to be very important. I usually tell people that if you stick to the more expensive restaurants, like seafood restaurants, steak houses, more expensive restaurants, you're gonna get a different level of service. You're gonna get people who will hear your requests, and you're also gonna get just higher quality of food. Most high quality, expensive restaurants have a protocol around people's allergies, and so this makes it a lot easier to handle different things that you're gonna need to take off of your meals. When it comes to your meals, you are gonna look for the most basic menu item that is going to require you to do the least work in transforming it to fit your diet. So you're not like getting like the fried chicken on the menu and just being like, can I get no breading and no this? Like, that's just grilled chicken. That's just gonna be too much work. Do you know what I mean? You're picking the items on the menu, read the description of the menu item and see what's in that item, and pick the item that you think is going to be the easiest to adjust to your diet. So like, you know how I feel about vegans, but if you're vegan, you're not going to try to adjust a meal that has meat. But if you are on GAPS, you're probably not going to pick a meal that's based around grains or gluten, because that's gonna be too hard to adjust. That's like asking for pizza with like no breading. No, you're just gonna get like a plate of tomato sauce. But if you pick quality restaurants, if you do some research ahead of time, do some research on Google, look for healthy restaurants, just literally search healthy restaurants, you should get a list and you're gonna need to weed through those and sift through and find what you think is actually quality. This is going for higher prices, unfortunately. Save your money, make a budget, but you're gonna need to find the higher quality things. If you can find farm to table restaurants, that's gonna be a really great option. And even if you're able to find some kind of organic restaurant, that's gonna be great because you will probably be able to eat the vegetables at the restaurant as well. So keep all those things in mind. Keep in mind the places these restaurants are sourcing things from. This will be setting you up for an easier time in my next step, which is step 2, and that is making special requests. So special requests, when you've picked your item, when you've picked the most basic thing for your diet that's going to be as easy to adjust as possible, you are then going to figure out what kinds of special requests you're going to need to ask for this particular meal. You're gonna wanna ask questions. You're gonna wanna ask, what is this sauce made out of? What do you use for cooking oils? How do you cook the meat? Is the meat marinated in anything? All these kinds of questions. Kind of give yourself as much information as possible, because this might also mean that you are then going to switch to another even simpler one if you find out, oh, this dish has been marinated in all of it and they can't change it or whatever. You're gonna wanna kind of have a couple ideas in your mind, and asking enough questions will give you the best idea as to whether this meal is going to be a safe option or not. Next, you're also then going to tell the waiter, this involves the special request, you're gonna tell the waiter what you are avoiding. Now, this is not giving them like the full list of like all full GAPS allowed foods. This is not giving them every single little thing, because especially on GAPS, you know, it's very complicated, and some of this you're gonna need to be able to let go of. That's why I'm saying pick high quality restaurants that you trust, but you're going to wanna be upfront. And at restaurants, since you can't give them your like laundry list of things that you have to avoid, you're going to want to think about things particularly like sugar, particularly like dairy, gluten, and corn. These 4 things are in literally every single restaurant's cooking repertoire. When you're thinking about these meals, you're thinking, how could these things possibly be in this meal? And that's going to be what you're communicating to them. So you're communicating to them about gluten. And this is where I tell people that you are extremely allergic. Not just allergic, but extremely allergic. Tell them that it's actually an allergy, because people will listen to you way more if you tell them that it's an allergy than if you just tell them, I'm like on a low carb diet and I like can't have any fat, which I don't believe in, obviously, but you know what I'm saying. They may not work as hard to help you find an option that's sugar-free as they would if you're like, I'm actually severely allergic to sugar and I can't have it. This is regardless of whether or not you're actually allergic to it, but you're going to be clear here because you want them to get the point. And you also don't want this weird dynamic between the waiter or waitress where you feel like you can't trust them because they don't really understand the severity of the situation. If you can be as thorough and upfront as possible, be a little vulnerable, not, extremely vulnerable. You're not telling them like what the allergy makes you do. It's like, whatever. But if you can be a little vulnerable, the waiter or waitress often has a bit of compassion for you and is willing to overturn a few stones to make sure that you get a safe meal. You're going to have them take things off of the meal that you can't have or that are even questionable. So I'm not going to have the waiter or waitress come and bring me the dressing container so that I can read the ingredient label. I'm just going to assume that every dressing has sugar. So there's things that you can avoid, ways you can avoid even over corresponding with the waiter or waitress that helps you just be direct and clear, but not like overwhelm them, confuse them, or even make things way too complicated. So that's again why you're picking the simplest meal to do this with, but you're also being very clear and avoiding things that are even questionable. Even if they might be safe, you're just avoiding certain things that you know are in the category of questionable. Now, in order to figure this out, this leads me to my 3rd step, finding out the lingo of restaurants. Now, it's kind of takes some trial and error, but that's why I'm here. I'm trying to explain to you what, in my experience, has been some of the lingo. But when you're deciding, what's questionable versus what's safe and all of that, you need to learn what they mean when they say things, because it's usually not what that actually is. So For instance, when you're reading, a menu item and you read a label that says marinade or cream sauce or like vinaigrette, all of those things in my mind now trigger, like, they're warning signs. They're like, okay, that item needs to be taken off. So you're learning what things actually mean so that you don't have to ask as many questions, and obviously that's stressful. There's a stress and anxiety to that, when you're out, especially with a friend, you're trying to keep things as minimal and simple as possible so that they get your point and it's clear and safe, but also you're not like sitting there giving them lectures. So some of this comes learning the lingo ahead of time. Now, I'm going to be pretty clear about some things that are just like absolute no-goes. At least for me when I'm on GAPS, like, you say no to the bread, you're gonna say no to the alcohol, you're gonna say no to the sugar. Those things are more common and understandable things to have crap in them, or things you shouldn't be having, especially if you're on GAPS, but generally on a lot of other diets, like, those things are pretty common, like the bread, the dessert, the alcohol. The things that are less common are the things that you're gonna wanna know the lingo for. So that is dressings and sauces and even ice, you guys. I know this sounds crazy, but I'm on GAPS and it's a big deal, like the quality of the water that you're drinking, that you're not drinking chemicals. So I do not drink the water that they serve me. I don't know what kind of water it is. I don't know if it's bottled water. I don't know what kind of bottled water it is. I don't know if it's had ice in it, if it's been sitting in plastic. I don't drink the water. What I will do in that case is I will bring along my Berkey water bottle, and I can just pour that tap water, or whatever they're giving me in the glass, into my Berkey water bottle to be filtered, so I can still have a drink there, but I'm not like worrying about all of that. Oftentimes it's saying no to most of the drinks unless you're at a very healthy, organic, restaurant where they might have juices and different options that are fresh pressed, and those would be great. You're assuming a lot of the drinks will probably have sugar in them. That is something that is a very fair assumption. In addition to ice, I know this is kind of a weird one, but ice is 9 times out of 10, even if they have bottled water, the ice is usually made from an ice machine that's hooked up to the main water line, which is usually city water. So as much as they might have maybe reverse osmosis water, if it's a restaurant that really cares about those things, you guys, the ice and things might actually contaminate the water with things that you don't want. So these are all things that's safe to assume are not good for you, even if you don't fully know. So you don't have to ask the question, like, what is this ice made out of? You're just gonna assume it and do what you can to manage it in the process. Another thing that's safe to assume is that all the dairy is pasteurized. Unless said otherwise, all the dairy is pasteurized. So if you're on GAPS and you're avoiding pasteurized dairy, you're gonna wanna avoid all dairy at the restaurants. This might even mean saying that you're allergic to dairy. Butter is also code word for canola oil at a lot of restaurants. Butter nowadays is never, ever pure butter. So don't go thinking that, oh, as long as it's butter, it's safe because on GAPS you can have butter. No, no, no. Unless you're at like an extremely farm-to-table restaurant, you've talked with the management, you know it really well, whatever, you've had some of those harder conversations, you're gonna assume butter means canola oil. You're gonna assume that cheese usually has some kind of filler in it, because when does it not? You're gonna assume that nuts are not fermented and properly soaked. You're gonna assume that beans and the lentils are not prepared properly. You're gonna assume things are not as they should be, and so you're picking things. Usually, actually, meat is the easiest because it's usually grilled, but you're gonna pick things that are gonna make your life easy. Other lingo to know is that anytime there's a dressing or a sauce, that usually means sugar. So that might be something to think ahead about, and bring your own dressing if you think you're gonna get a salad at an organic restaurant, whatever. Bring your own. At times, I have also just asked for a side of olive oil. If I feel like I trust it, I can ask for a side of olive oil. If I notice that it's like some kind of fancy vinaigrette, I'll just ask them to take that off and just give me a side of olive oil and a side of lemon, and then some salt. You get some salt, lemon, and olive oil, and it makes a great dressing on the go. So that's another pro tip if you're traveling and you don't trust the dressings. And the last kind of, weird lingo one is really just that anything cooked is usually cooked in oil, which I know this is kind of hard, you guys. It's hard to understand and hard to sift through. So here's what I do. You can first ask how it's cooked. Is it cooked in a pan or is it grilled? If it's grilled, it's better, but you can just ask them for completely plain, ask for unmarinated, no oils on it. Tell them that you can't have any oils. If for whatever reason you're at a restaurant that's being kind of a pain in the and you really need to eat or something or whatever, you're on the go, I've just at times asked them to cook it in olive oil, which I know is not good. Olive oil turns into trans fat when it's cooked, so I don't recommend this. But if it's between that and some kind of vegetable oil and they don't have an option to grill, it's gonna be safer done in olive oil than it is in. It's really not safe, but you know what I'm saying. If it really comes down to it, that's kind of what I've done in the past. You know, the Gap's police can shoot me later. It's safe to assume that anything that looks cooked, which is pretty much always anything on the menu unless it's a salad, is going to be cooked in some kind of oil. So you can ask for them to pan-sear things like fish, a super safe option. Usually fish is pan-seared, but making sure to be clear about how things are cooked as well is a really good idea. Ask what it's marinated in. You know, if it's steak, they usually do have some kind of sauce mixed in with it. Ask for those things off. Be clear that you can't have any kind of oils on it or in it or whatever, that all you need is salt, pepper, and garlic. That's the way I do it. Now, it's not always easy, but you guys, I'm hopeful that with these tips, you guys can succeed in making eating out at restaurants at least a little bit possible. I recently went on a vacation and I utilized all of these tips while I was there, and you guys, it was a game changer. I don't know what I would have done without it. It really did save me in a lot of ways. If you want to learn how I went on vacation on Gaps and what I brought with me, what I traveled with, how I brought some stuff to even use in my hotel room to cook things up with, I will link the video above as to how I did all of that and the whole process with packing and what I brought and what to think about. If you got anything valuable out of this video, comment below. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. Please like and subscribe for more nutritional and emotional healing content like this. It is my passion to walk alongside people as they heal and grow. It inspires me and hopefully brings encouragement to you. Thanks for watching.